I'm going to kick off, everybody. So I'd just like to thank our guests for joining us today and for their time and wisdoms in advance. Just some housekeeping with regards to the session. This is a webinar, so your cameras and microphones, this is the students, are not to be turned on, so they have been automatically turned off. If you want to ask a question, please ask it at any time, but ask it in the Q&A function and not the chat function. We are on a tight schedule, so we are going to be sort of finishing very promptly at 12:45. This is the first day of 2 days of science fairs. It's our third speaker panel today. We're very lucky to have some alums who want to contribute to the learning of our students. Can I also say that there's a second day tomorrow, which is the actual in-person careers fair in the Wolfson atrium. So go along to that. There's some great companies there for you to talk to. Anyway, let's introduce myself. I'm Fiona Stubbs. I'm the careers manager for the College of Medical, Veterinary and Life Sciences. And I'll start off by asking the first question. So I just want people, if they could remind our audience, our student audience, of their job title and maybe typical things that they do in their job. And if we start with Janice maybe, and then Emma, and then Matthew.
Yeah, so I actually just finished up with Celtic Football Club on Sunday just there, but my title was the under-9s to under-16 sports scientist working in their boys academy. Basically producing frameworks so that we have a long-term athletic development model for the youth players coming through the academy. But I'm about to start a new position with Strathclyde University as their lead performance coach with their scholarship athletes.
Thank you. Emma?
So my name is Emma Trainer, and I'm quite similar to Janice in the sense that I've just finished a role with Rangers Football Club. I was their women and girls sports scientist for 2.5 years. So I was primarily with the women's first team, and my role was kind of everything from the on pitch, taking of warm-ups, any of the strength and conditioning work in the gym or on the field, and then looking at the kind of data analysis side of things with regards to GPS and heart rate. So covered kind of both sides of that, and then had a small role in the girls academy as well, trying to help the development of the younger athletes that were coming through the academy at Rangers.
And Matthew?
Yeah, so my name is Matthew Hamilton. I'm the Irish one of the two Scots. I work for the men's national team for the Irish Rugby Union. I do all the sports science data, so data collection for GPS, strength tracking, and part of the data science team here as well. So we collect insights from lots of other data sets like Opta. We try and collate all of that together with our GPS data. So try and merge everything with performance analysis and with GPS analysis and strength tracking and with a physio. So trying to hybrid role with everyone together.
Thank you. So can I ask, thanks for describing your jobs. They all sound super interesting, but what do you love about your jobs? And conversely, what are the frustrations about them? Janice?
I suppose working within a youth academy, the best part is probably seeing the development of young players coming through the process. You spend a lot of time building athletic development frameworks for players to go through and become better athletes and to improve their pitch performance. So yeah, that's probably the best part about it. And frustrations are probably whenever that doesn't necessarily work out, or it could be better. And that comes back to a better part of the job is you just go back to the drawing board, break it apart and build it. You're constantly developing. It's not like you have a structure and you just run with it. You're constantly looking to improve it to help the players.
Emma?
I think my favourite bit is working as part of a team. I think that's the bit I've always enjoyed the most. I like working as part of a team of coaching staff, and I also really like getting to know the players that I work with and trying to work out how to get the best out of them because they're all different. And I think that's the bit that I find the most challenging and also the most rewarding when you feel like you've kind of got somewhere with maybe like a certain individual that you were struggling maybe in the beginning with. So I think I like trying to apply sports science to individuals in that sense, even though sometimes you're maybe working in a team sport, it's a group of 20 individuals. I think what I find frustrating is, I think it's probably the small things. I think for a while I used to get frustrated about the things you can't control. So when you want to try and do your job, but you've got obstacles in the way. So, and it's always like the silly things like the times of meals or the bus or the travel or all those wee things that are probably really, they're out with your control. They're somebody else's like job, but they have an impact on your planning or on your day to day. And I think for ages I used to get really frustrated about that, and I'm probably trying to teach myself now that just to go with the flow and to maybe not have quite so strict a plan, because usually the plan has to go out the window at some point.
Thank you, Emma. And yourself, Matthew?
Yeah, I can really echo that as well, Emma. Especially like international camps, you're flying places, you're getting buses everywhere. Even today, for example, our meeting lasts half an hour longer than scheduled. So our whole days have been shifted half an hour. Our gym timings are off, meals will be off now. So, but again, it's part of the job. You be flexible and you need to just be aware of what can happen and try and get the process all done before then. It's kind of a frustration and enjoyment as well, though, because it just means like how well you know your stuff too. And that there's a lot of times when I first started, we all worked in silos. So you kind of got a department over here, physios, coaches, S&C staff, sports science. But now we all work together, which is really good. So we kind of get that team enjoyment factor. Like no one's kind of doing their own thing. If you need some help, we can all like merge in together. So I really enjoy that kind of side of it and working in a team, which is great. That's how you get better. So.
Great, thank you for that. Moving on, I just want to ask about all of your first job out of graduation, and how much did it provide a platform for this job? I mean, I know a lot of students get very stressed about the first job. I'm often saying to them, don't worry about the first job, maybe the second job, the third job that is the one that you can get your teeth into or you enjoy most. I just wondered what your progression from being a student into the workforce was and how did it help you? So Janice first, please.
Well, before I was at university, I did gymnastics and then got into gymnastics coaching, and I kept that on while I was at university. I suppose I was quite privileged in that I went to university in the city that I grew up in, so I had, coaching to continue on. And I think getting that experience of delivering to various age groups and abilities for a number of years while I was at university definitely made a massive difference when it went into the sports science practical environment. So then when I got the internship with Aberdeen Football Club through the Cathcart Scholarship in my third year, and my gymnastics coaching actually helped me get that position. And yeah, the difference it made being in that environment and feeling comfortable delivering to people while you're learning and feeling a bit out of your depth definitely helped massively. And again, you can continue that on for the first couple of positions I had with Celtic women's team when I was still at university. And I think every job after that, always used the gymnastics basics and the coaching basics that I had for those number of years that have definitely helped me to this day. And even when I go into job interviews, I'm still referencing it. So just getting any sort of practical delivery and working with people and communicating with people and working as a team.
Thank you, Janice. And yourself, Emma?
Yeah, I was probably quite similar to Janice in the sense that through my first year and second year of uni, I just tried to get as much experience, some of it volunteer based in the beginning, just to get myself comfortable. I used to go to Ayr United Academy like on a Wednesday night, and it was purely just because I knew that I was learning through university, but I wanted to try and get that practical experience to go alongside it. So that was probably the thing I did first. And then probably my main job or kind of beginner job was with Scottish Hockey. And again, I got that through, I started as an internship through the Cathcart Scholarship and then eventually got kept on afterwards and was there for 4 years. And I think the thing that I learned the most when I was there was that was the time to like learn and to make the mistakes and to learn from your mistakes, and to also just try and work out what type of practitioner you want to be, because everybody's got different styles, but you don't really know that until you go into an environment and you have to kind of stand on your own 2 feet, make decisions, and yeah, they're not always going to be right. And so I think your first job, that's exactly what that's for. So yeah, I think that was the biggest learning I had from my first role, was just to get as much from it as you possibly could and to learn from your mistakes as you go.
Right, great advice. Thank you, Emma. Finally, Matthew.
So, general similar kind of theme really. So I got Cathcart as well. So my third year at uni, I actually got an internship with Glasgow Warriors. I was doing performance analysis and GPS with them. So that was really interesting. So that was about a 1.5 year internship before I got my thesis in 4th year. And then for Cathcart, I went to work in New Zealand for 4 months. So it's just really getting that kind of on-hand experience. It's really second to none, the Cathcart. It's amazing. Like everybody has to go for it, you get a chance really, because you make so many connections and it really helps you. Like for example, when I left uni, I actually went into recruitment. I went away from sports science for a bit just because I thought, oh, I'm in New Zealand here. Everyone's talking about like unpaid jobs. I thought like, I don't know, how's this going to go in the future? So right, I'll take a gamble. I went to recruitment. Absolutely hated it every second. I think I quit within 3 weeks. It wasn't for me. So my piece of advice for that is really follow your dreams. Like if you love sports, you have to go for it. Like I'm now in my perfect job in my eyes. Do you know what I mean? So if you love something, follow your heart and your dreams. You'll get there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Use all your connections as you can. I got with my master's research was with Glasgow Warriors again. But for my interview for that, the head S&C was a guy called Phil Healy. He worked for the Blues in New Zealand. So when I came home, I said I worked for North Harbour, their team in Auckland as well. And I said, I did all this placement. And my boss in New Zealand was his best mate from home as well. So it's those small connections. So I thought, I've gone to New Zealand here. How are you two like mates have gone from different sides of the world, different countries? This is mad. So sports is such a small world. If you get as many connections as you can, make a good impression, put your head down and just follow your dreams. Like I went to recruitment, hated it, went back into sports, and I'm now running for the national team. So yeah, if you love it, you have to follow your dreams and go for it.
Yeah. No, a great advice. I'm always a great one for networking. It does show you've always got to be on your best behaviour because you never know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You never know.
Anyway, over to you, Nan. Your questions now.
Thanks, Fiona. Matthew, I was in recruitment as well and was not his #1 fan, that's for sure. Okay, so I think you guys have given some really good information about sort of the practical skills that you gained through various placements and so on. But from thinking back to the degrees that you did through your undergraduate degrees, a lot of people listening in today are probably 3rd and 4th year sports scientists, 1st and 2nd year budding sports scientists as well. So how much of the knowledge and the skills from your degree do you still use today? Let's go, we'll go with Matthew first.
Yes, so it's so applied, everything you need. So like VO2 max tests, we do the odd thing here because a lot of our guys go to South Africa, altitude training. So this is a very new thing. The URC's brought in, you have to go to Bilfontein, you have to go to the altitude. So we would do a lot of heat acclimatization. So all that kind of lab works based stuff we do. It's so applied now because you would have thought 3 years ago you go to South Africa. It's a completely new thing. So having that knowledge at uni, I can now apply that and be ahead of the curve rather than think, oh, I need to learn this in my job. I actually know it as well. So that's been really useful. And everything data, especially for me, really, we loads of data classes to do in 3rd and 4th year, and that just really helps with me anyway for my analytical insights. So very good.
Good, thank you, Matthew. Emma?
Yeah, I think that actually I was probably surprised moving from 2 different sports, how sometimes sports science has a different impact. So in hockey, it was probably maybe less so. And then in football, I was really surprised about how much, it's maybe different coaches as well, but how much they asked and wanted my input on the training load for the week or what the planning of the sessions were or the periodization, things like that, that really did then make me think back to all the things I'd learned at uni and really probably challenged my thinking more so than maybe other roles had. And it's very similar to what Matthew's saying in the sense that all of the physiology, when you just have to apply it to different settings. but yeah, I think data analysis, the physiology, and then anything that you're doing in labs, like all of that comes back when you're in a kind of an applied setting. You just have to pull from it at different times.
Okay, good, thank you. Janice?
Yeah, it's kind of repeating what these guys have said. When you're in a lecture and you're learning all this information, sometimes it doesn't always come together until you're in a practical environment and you're actually using it. So for instance, when I've worked at Strathclyde University before as a performance coach, I'm not just working with football, you're working with rugby and hockey and badminton and volleyball and curlers and canoe and kayak, and you've basically got to use your ability to go and research these different sports and the physiological side of the sport, the needs analysis for the sport. And you learn all of that within university, the ability to go and look for the information and then apply it within different settings into different sports. So, yeah.
Good, thank you. Okay, so you've all in the past either used the Cathcart scholarship, or you did an internship project as part of your undergraduate degree. So just looking for a bit more, just a kind of brief summary of what was involved on either your Cathcart placement or your internship, and then how you feel that has then improved your chances of getting into the jobs that you're in today. So again, we'll start with Matthew.
Yeah, so I went to New Zealand, as I said, worked for North Harbour. They're kind of a feeder team for the Auckland Blues. So I went out there with some knowledge for performance analysis originally. So I said, right, went to meet a guy called Sam and said, I'll help you in any kind of way possible. Just give me some work and I'll crack on, kind of thing. And then so this guy Sam in one corner, and then another guy in the other corner doing GPS. So I thought, well, why are you two guys sitting across the way from each other? Why are you guys collaborating, working together? So I said, right, well, can I try a bit of both? Because one was a student, one had a part-time job as well. So I said, well, I've got loads of time in the world. Can I have a crack to see how this goes, kind of thing? And then that got really good, really interesting. The coaches really enjoyed the whole collaboration. And that's when I got back in touch with Vicky at the uni to say, I've got an idea that New Zealand Rugby have given me. Is there a way I can apply this for a master's degree? And then that's basically how we looked at collaborating performance analysis and GPS to determine the worst case scenario in rugby situations. And then from that, obviously finished my degree in February this year. And then for my interview for Ireland, they said, so what kind of projects have you led on? What have you done? So I mentioned both my undergrad degree with Scottish rugby, but also New Zealand rugby as well. So just having that applied experience, saying I've led a project, I know what I'm doing, I've done it in the field, is literally second to none. Like they say, you can crack on with your project here as well. So I'm still doing the same work I'm doing for my master's with the Irish national team. So it just shows like be translatable. You can take it anywhere you go, really. So having that hands-on applied experience is so important.
Good, thank you, Matthew. Emma.
So my Cathcart scholarship was with the Scottish Hockey men's national team. I spent the summer with them in the lead up to their European B qualification tournament. So really I got hands-on experience through that full summer, and then I got the experience to travel to Poland and Prague, Poland for a holding camp, and then Prague for the tournament for 2 weeks. So the hands-on kind of practical experience was great. It was probably the first that I'd had that. And then also I was able to travel with a team, see what the ins and outs of that were, how that differed from being in a training camp in Glasgow, and also working as part of a wider team of staff, finding out what my role was that way. And then transferring it into jobs now. Well, the Cathcart scholarship then ultimately led to my first job because they kept me on. So that then led to 4 years where I worked in that environment. And now when I go for interviews, or when I then went on to work at Rangers, that became probably I could refer back to those 4 years. I could say that I knew how to work in team sports. I travelled, we'd been to tournaments, we'd been to the Commonwealth Games, there was high pressure situations. So that experience is now I use it all the time, and it wouldn't have happened if I hadn't gone for the Cathcart scholarship. And something that I thought was going to be 4 weeks, 6 weeks maximum ended up being 4 years in a job, so it worked out quite well for me.
Good, excellent. Janice?
So my Cathcart scholarship was with through Aberdeen Football Club. So we had 6 weeks in total. 2 of those was in Portugal with the under-20s in a pre-season training camp. And then 4 weeks up in Aberdeen working with the rest of the academy. So I got to experience everything from the under-9s all the way through to their B team. And it was my first time working in football. So yeah, sort of thrown in the deep end, learning all about GPS, heart rate, all the sort of wellness, RPEs, training loads. And I think that having that experience, then when I got offered the women's team position with Celtic, they were looking for someone who'd worked with GPS before. It was a voluntary position. And because I had that experience working in football, I then went on to work with Celtic women's team for 3 years. It was a voluntary position. So, but through that, I then got experience and with the men's team. So I got the research master's position with Celtic men's team for a year. So it was sort of a bit of a domino effect from having the Cathcart scholarship, getting experience through Aberdeen Football Club, which then led on to Celtic women's team, which then led on to the research master's position with the Celtic men's team for a year. And although I sort of finished up with Celtic for a period, went away and got experience elsewhere, but then ultimately, because I had that good relationship with the staff there, I then was invited. Well, it's not the main reason I got this job, but it certainly helps when you've been there and worked with the staff. So yeah, all down to the Cathcart scholarship.
Good. Well done for advertising us to our students. Okay, so the next question kind of leads in as well a wee bit. So we know that there's about 10,000 students a year graduate in a degree with sport in the title, and a lot of those being sports science. What advice would you give to the students that are listening in today to make them stand out against the crowd? And that kind of links in with the question about whether you would advise them to take on internship projects, and if they're thinking about doing an internship project, again, what advice would you give them for that? So kind of 2 questions in one: how to stand out, and then what advice would you give about those thinking of doing the internship? Matthew, go for it. I forgot to ask who.
So advice, I would just say try and learn as many skills as possible. Like sports science isn't necessarily just with cones and a whistle now. You need to know your data. You need to know your applied stats with it too. So I did a few data courses as well at uni. Using softwares to visualize things as well, like Tableau or Power BI. So this is all skills you learn on the job, but knowing that early on, it makes you stand apart, because you could have the best reports, the best analysis done, but if it doesn't look good, no one's going to look at it. No one's going to say, right, I'm going to take it in, I'm going to question you, I'm going to take something beneficial from it. So I'd say it's not just the university degree, it's other skills, making things look nice, knowing your stats as well, which does come with sports science, but just having that kind of back end knowledge too, just helps you stand out. You've got an extra string in your bow as well. Again, hands-on experience is really second to none. It beats everything really. Helping out in any department, you never know when a nutritionist needs you or a physio needs you to strap in, because you can always help in. Like I now work with physios, I work with nutrition to post-match game and see who's high, for example, collision load, who's high running load. So I'm now working with them to see what subs they need, what nutrition they need, physios, what top-ups they need for return to play, etc. So don't just narrow yourself down into one kind of industry. Look into other industries as well, like how can I help with nutrition, how can I help with physios as well. Don't just think, right, I'm doing GPS or I'm doing performance analysis. Look into other avenues, help loads of people. Just get yourself out there as much as you can.
Good, excellent. Emma?
Yeah, I would firstly echo what Matthew said, in the sense of, if you're in a team sport, go and speak to the analysts, go and speak to the physios, because your job links really closely with them. If you understand why on the pitch, for example, the analysts are speaking about something, that's then going to tie into, okay, so who needs to be quicker, or who needs to be more robust, or whatever. Same with the physios, why are we picking up those injuries? do we have a trend of lots of quad injuries? Why is that? Working with females, what's the trends with, with working in female sport? How can I then transition that into my job? So I'd say, first of all, network in that sense as much as you possibly can. I'd say get as much experience, say yes to everything, even the things that you're uncomfortable doing. I think for a long time, I wanted to avoid doing things that made me feel uncomfortable. Well, the reason they made me feel uncomfortable is because I wasn't confident doing them. So you have to push yourself out your comfort zone. If you feel quite confident sitting behind a computer and looking at Excel and, doing GPS analysis, that's great. But can you verbalize it to coaching staff? Can you really make an impact that way? For me, for example, I quite liked doing all of that, the GPS work, but I hated taking warm-ups. They made me feel so uncomfortable. I wasn't confident doing it. I eventually then moved. I knew that was the case. I went and found a job that was purely just taking the warm-up and the conditioning sessions at Clydesdale Hockey Club. And for the first few weeks, I absolutely dreaded going on a Tuesday and a Thursday night because I knew that was the only part of the job I couldn't hide. And eventually I got more confident at doing it. And now it's not a part of my job that I actually quite enjoy. It's probably my favourite part of my job now. I don't want to sit at a computer and look at numbers. I want to be out on the pitch. So I'd say do more of the things you feel really uncomfortable doing, because that's probably the areas that you need to strengthen yourself up on.
Good, excellent. Get pushed out your comfort zone. Good advice. Janice.
Echoing what both these guys have said, but getting as much practical experience as you possibly can. And I know it's difficult, especially when you're busy with university, and as much as taking internships and unpaid work is really difficult. If you're balancing university, maybe a paid job, and trying to get experience, it is really difficult. And personally, at one point I had 5 different jobs on the go, and 2 of them were paid, just to get experience. And I spoke about gymnastics earlier, but having that practical role when you need to communicate with your athletes, with parents, with other coaches, with other key stakeholders that you're working with, going to competitions, organising things. But your ability to communicate is so key. Even if you're in a sports science position, you can have the best programs in the world, but if you can't communicate properly with your athletes, or you can have the best GPS in the world, but if you can't communicate that information to coaches and to other people, then it's going to make the job a lot more difficult. So if you're looking to make yourself sort of stand out, lots of practical experience and work on your soft skills, your ability to communicate with different people and in uncomfortable situations.
Good. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with everything. Well, you guys are the proof that if you do that, it leads to the jobs that you've gotten into. It's good evidence there. Fiona, can I ask another question? Have we got time for another question? I've got another question. It's not a curveball, don't worry. So I often get asked by students about, should I go and get this qualification, get that qualification, so on. So have you guys gone on and gotten any other qualifications out with your degree over the years? Janice, start with you.
Well, apart from the Masters, I'm currently on the basis process and studying for the CSCS and the UKSCA. But again, it's probably another piece of advice is try and get it as early as you possibly can, because when you're working full time and studying for 3 different things, especially in football and rugby, there's no such thing as a 35-hour week. It's as many hours as you possibly can. Short answer is basis. Long answer is get it done as soon as possible.
So that's basis accreditation.
Sorry.
That's basis accreditation that you're going for.
Yeah, so I'm on the SE process, the supervised experience process.
Okay, good. Emma?
So I would definitely agree with what Janice said about do it as early as possible, because you think you'll get time and you definitely then don't have the time that you think you're going to. So I did started doing UKSCA. I have 3 modules out the 4. That's a prime example of doing the first 3 bits and saying I'll get the 4th bit next month, 6 months time, and it's been a good year and a bit now, and it's just the thing that keeps rolling on. So I'd say get it done as best as quickly as you can. So UKS for me, SCA for me, also through Rangers did the skin folds, but that was good because it was through a work, like, or through a job, so you might be able to get that. And also then, whilst I've had some free time recently, I did a sports massage course, and that was purely just because I know that working in team sports, it's a wee bit left field, but usually physios are really busy, and that's the side of things that from a recovery point of view sometimes is a wee bit neglected. So again, thought, okay, it's a bit left field, but from a sports science point of view, it could be helpful in a kind of team sport environment. So that's kind of my three.
Good, excellent, thank you. Matthew?
Yeah, so I'd probably echo all what you've said as well, really. A good thing as well, though, if you join like a union, like, so when I was at Scotland Rugby, they did a skinfold tests. They had in-house workshops for UKSCA, because it's quite daunting, because it can be quite expensive as well, especially if you're a student. You might think, right, I need to save up for a full summer to afford this. But again, if you get a good internship placement like Scottish Rugby for me, or Celtic Rangers, like the other two girls, they do a lot of in-house workshops as well. Not necessarily full qualification, but it's still getting you there, and it's still something you can put in your CV. So don't be too daunted to say, I don't have the UKSCA or the ASA or anything. You still have workshops, you still have level 1, level 2, and you can still use that as well going forward. So don't be too daunted to say, I don't have this, or I need to get this SCP. As long as you get something on the journey, on the pathway, for sure, which is great. And definitely earlier the better, because you've got all the time in the world, really. Whereas in the real-time world, you really don't. You've got meetings at 6:30, you've got meetings at 6:30 a.m. and also 9:30 p.m. So like, where does it happen during the day? Unless it's outside of camp. So yeah, get it done early. But don't be too concerned about money kind of aspect of it. If you get level 1, level 2 workshops, then absolutely fine as well. So
I think that's also where getting a volunteer job, actually, sometimes, although it's not ideal to not be getting paid, sometimes that opens up an opportunity where they might say, we can't pay you a wage, but we'll pay for you to do a qualification. And that sometimes is, and it's not always ideal, but that's a way sometimes to get more on your CV. I know that UKSCA, Scottish Hockey, like, helped me with, like, so that's like that might be another option for you.
Yeah, a part-time role at Strathclyde, a couple of years ago, they put me on the Young Careers Grant. So you get basically enough money to cover 2 UKSCA workshops. And even if you are applying for your first position, you might not have the UKSCA workshop, but if you're able to put in your CV, however, I'm working towards it and I've done 1-2 modules towards it, it's showing your employer that you're putting the effort in, and that's your long-term aim. And employers know that it's expensive to put yourself through these things. Same with I highly recommend the BASIS SE process, because you can do it the minimum time you can do it is in 2 years, so you can spread it out over a period of time. I started it during lockdown, and it's a good way to network as well. You've got to do core workshops, and one of my supervisors is the head of sports science for Leeds United, so you're networking through things like that as well. So I highly recommend that process.
Brilliant. Good, thank you very much. Okay, Fiona, that's me.
Yeah, thank you all for your answers to your questions. I'm just going to go over, there's a few questions in the Q&A. For anyone in the audience, it's your time now. It's your time to ask questions, but the ones that are there, someone says, how do you approach the fact that many jobs ask for experience and you don't have it? Yes, I mean, you have given some top tips, but I just wondered if have you got any more top tips to help those that don't have the experience, particularly some of our students that have gone through COVID and haven't been able to get out and about? Janice, do you have any tips?
Unfortunately, it sort of involves unpaid work, which is just disappointing. It is unfortunately the reality of our industry and trying to get your foot in the door. I know there are so many local grassroots clubs that would love a sports scientist to come in, and especially in pre-season, go and do some summer work with any sort of team, whether it be hockey or football or rugby. Would love anybody to go in and take them for some pre-season running. They might hate you afterwards, but just getting that experience and having it to put on the CV. And like we've sort of said, you never know where the coaches will go afterwards. You never know where these connections can be made. So try and get some sort of summer experience or pre-season experience.
And can I ask you, this might be hard to answer, but would you suggest they actually physically go to the club, or email? Because which one's most effective? Old school or online? That's a hard one, I know. Sorry for that.
Both.
Yes,
almost
both.
depend.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I remember when I was looking for experience, like first and second year of uni, I must have sent 30 to 35 different emails to different clubs, to just whatever contacts I could find. And I genuinely think I probably got 3 replies, like if that. And that's when I ended up at Ayr United, and it was with the academy 7, I think they were 7 to 9, and it was at 6:30, and it probably took me as long to get there of a night there and back than it did for the time I was there. But again, you're just doing that network. So I would really echo what Janice said, which is just send as many emails as you possibly can, speak to as many people as you possibly can. And sometimes it's not always going to be the glamorous jobs. I think that's maybe where I went wrong as well, is that you email all the obvious places, the big clubs in rugby, the big clubs in football, or athletics or whatever it is. And I would say, think outside the box, go grassroots. Maybe if all you need is the experience, you just need to be able to kind of apply your trade. And if that's just with a smaller club somewhere, it's a start, and it's still experience on your CV, and it still shows that you're willing to work. So I would say don't always think it needs to be the glamorous club.
Yeah. And can I just butt in there? I'm always on about when you're sending off CVs, cover letters, emails, whatever, make it targeted. So don't do a cookie cutter response. If you're applying to one club, make it different to the other, and make it look like you've done your homework for that club, because you can see you can see it from a mile off if you haven't.
Yeah, it becomes transparent, doesn't it? If it's a blanket
really,
email, it's obvious.
Yeah, it looks like you don't care. Matthew, do you have anything to add to that?
That's a really good point you've said as well. I think it depends who you're going to email, if it's a general HR email or if it's someone specific at the club. So, for example, at Glasgow, I was emailing a guy called George Petrakos. So I was always told in uni to look him up, see what he does, what's his previous work, what's he done before in rugby, who's he worked with, what's his research involved in. So I looked him up, thought, right, he's really involved in strength and power and speed agility stuff. So I said, right, I'll look through his papers, what's he done before, and include that in your CV letter as well, and say, I'm really interested in this area of topic, really interested in this as well. I'd love to learn from you. Yeah. And that makes a whole difference to say, I'm a third year student, I'm a fourth year student, I want experience, please give it to me, rather than say, right, I'm interested in this, I want to learn this as well. But also, you don't need to be that specific as well at the same time. So say, for example, you really want a sports science internship with GPS, but if you get a performance analysis one, or even in film water bottles, you can do that for a day, and then you can find it in the club who involves with GPS or performance analysis. Then just tag along with them. You don't need to do what you apply for as well. Once you're in the door, you're in the door. You go anywhere you want. So I wouldn't feel pigeonholed in a way. Just get in somewhere and then make connections when they come to say, right, can I look at you for a day or mix this week about? And then once you like it, just stick where you are. So just get yourself in the door and go from there.
Top tips. Thank you. We've got 4 minutes now, so I'm going to cram things in. So any questions, if you could make them short and sweet. Both Daniel and Abby asked about the Cathcart Scholarship. How did they get involved? I don't know if anyone or Nen, can you help with this?
Yeah, Nen. I'll answer quickly. It only applies to third and fourth year sports scientists. So once you get into your third year, you'll receive information about the scholarship and how to apply for it, but it's only available if you do physiology and sports science in third year and fourth year. If you do the physiology, sports science and nutrition in your final year, you can still apply because you've done physiology, sports science in third year. And the premise is that you go out and you work within an elite sporting organisation to gain that experience, and everything is paid for. So flights, accommodation, visas, food, the whole works gets covered by the scholarship. So as I'm sure you've seen, it works. If you go on these placements and you kind of get involved and do well, it can lead to bigger and better things. So yeah, cool. But not available until your third year.
Thank you. I'm going to just choose them in order of what I consider important, so apologies. Ravi asks, what portals do you search for jobs for international students who perhaps don't have prior connections? So basically, have you any job sites that are suitable for sports science positions? Does anyone know any?
One I
Please.
really like at the moment, there's one on Twitter that's called like Jobs in Sports Science. And I really, really like it because it's really easy and it just gives you a breakdown of the job, the link of where to apply for it. Like, I think that's probably the best there's been in years at the moment. It's dead easy.
Yeah.
And says what it does on the tin. Yeah, sorry, Janice.
Complimentary training on Facebook as well. Facebook, I think he's got a Twitter page and Instagram page. Every day there's jobs coming up for all over the world.
Can you say that again? It just jumped for me.
Complimentary training on social media.
Fantastic. Matthew, do you have any in your area?
Twitter is unbelievable, short and sharp. Go on Twitter, search anything you want. One's called Rugby Vacancies. As Jan says, complimentary training, UK Golf.sport. Just go on Twitter. Twitter's amazing. That's all I'll say.
Fantastic. Great. Alessio, sorry. It's a question for you, Janice, about gymnastics. She's a beginner at gymnastics in both practicing and following the sport. Do you need to be an expert in a specific sport to work in that field as a sports scientist or a sports nutritionist? So, Janice.
I don't know about working as a sports scientist and sport nutritionist because I haven't done that myself. I've just been a gymnastics coach. But in terms of being able to coach it, definitely not. No, as long as you've got a link with a club, you need a link to be able to go and do your level 1 coaching course and to be able to coach, if that's the side of things that she's interested in. But in terms of working as a sports scientist, that's probably my dream, to be honest, to go on and work with some gymnasts. That would be nice. So I'll let you know if I find out.
Thank you. Last question from Daniel. Is the scholarship available if you're studying abroad?
I'm assuming you mean if you're in your second year, Daniel. So, like I said earlier, it's only available once you get into third year. So if you've done any placements prior to then, your year abroad's probably been prior to coming into your third year. So yeah, once you start your third year in sports science, then that's when you can start applying for the Cathcart scholarship.
Cool. Right, 12:45. I'm just going to end the session now. I just want to ask Janice, Emma, Matthew, our thanks for a really great session. I think there's a lot of top tips there for everybody. I've taken away some takeaways, and I'm not a sports scientist or even in that field. So thank you very much. Really, thank you for your time today.